What if the most famous psalm in the Bible held a hidden secret that could completely change the way you see God, and you've been missing it all along? What if 6 short verses contain the key to finding unshakable peace in chaos, strength in weakness, and hope in the darkest moments of life? And what if unlocking this ancient truth could transform your entire relationship with God, giving you a depth of trust and joy you've never experienced before? Hey there, friend. Let me ask you something. How many times have you heard Psalm 23? Maybe you grew up hearing it read in church on quiet Sunday mornings. Maybe it was whispered at a funeral, bringing comfort to grieving hearts. Or maybe you've even memorized it, reciting it during tough seasons, hoping to draw strength from its familiar words. But let me tell you something that might surprise you. There's a powerful secret hidden within Psalm 23, a secret so life-changing that once you truly see it, it will completely shift the way you experience God forever. You might be thinking, wait, isn't Psalm 23 just about God being our shepherd? And yes, it absolutely is, but it's so much more. What if I told you that tucked inside these 6 short verses is a divine blueprint, a guide to living with true peace in chaos, strength in your weakest moments, and unwavering hope in the face of uncertainty? What if I told you that understanding this one psalm the way God intended could radically transform your daily walk with Him, bringing you a closeness and confidence you never thought possible? Most people read Psalm 23 like a beautiful poem, a comforting anthem for hard times. But David wasn't just writing pretty words to soothe troubled souls. He was unveiling a deep spiritual reality, a revelation of who God truly is and how He actively moves in our lives. And here's the honest truth. Most of us never fully grasp it. Today, that changes. Today, we're going to unlock the hidden power inside Psalm 23. And by the end of this journey, you'll see it like you never have before. I believe with all my heart that if you open your spirit to this truth, it will change your life forever. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Before we plunge deep into the hidden treasure of Psalm 23, we need to step back and look carefully at its context. Because context isn't just important, it changes everything. Who wrote Psalm 23? Psalm 23 was penned by King David himself. Yes, the same David who boldly faced Goliath with just a sling and a stone. The same David who rose from shepherd boy to mighty king. And yes, the same David who stumbled, who failed spectacularly, yet was still known as a man after God's own heart. But here's something most people overlook. Before David was a king, he was a shepherd. He spent long, lonely years out in the fields, caring for sheep, defending them from lions, bears, and unseen dangers, guiding them through rocky paths, feeding them, protecting them with his very life. So when David calls God my shepherd in Psalm 23, he isn't tossing out a poetic metaphor. He's speaking from raw personal experience. He's pouring out a truth he had lived and breathed. David knew exactly what it meant to be a shepherd, and even more importantly, what it meant to be a sheep, completely dependent on the one leading him. In the last part, we discovered that when David called God his shepherd, he wasn't speaking in abstract poetry. He was drawing from the raw, rugged experiences of his own life. Now, to fully grasp the hidden power of Psalm 23, we need to understand just how profound that imagery truly was in the world David lived in. When David described God as a shepherd, he wasn't just picking a random metaphor from thin air. He was speaking from deep personal experience, from the dusty hills, the sleepless nights, and the battles he fought to protect helpless sheep. David didn't just know what it meant to care for sheep. He knew, even more intimately, what it meant to be a sheep, utterly dependent on the one who led, fed, and defended him. The cultural and biblical importance of shepherds. In ancient Israel, shepherding wasn't just a humble occupation. It was an essential part of life and survival. Sheep were incredibly valuable. They provided wool for clothing, milk for nourishment, and even served as sacrifices in worship before God. But despite their value, sheep were utterly helpless without a shepherd. They would wander aimlessly, often getting lost or stuck in dangerous places. They had no instincts for finding food or water on their own. And when predators came, wolves, lions, bears, sheep had no claws, no fangs, no natural defenses. They were completely dependent. Without a shepherd, a flock would be doomed. That's why a shepherd in David's world wasn't just a caretaker. He was a protector, a provider, a guide, a fierce defender willing to risk his life for the flock. Sound familiar? That's exactly how God watches over us. Why does God call himself a shepherd? Throughout the Bible, God repeatedly refers to himself as a shepherd and us as his sheep. Psalm 103 declares, "We are his people, the sheep of his pasture." Isaiah 40:11 paints a tender image. He tends his flock like a shepherd. He gathers the lambs in his arms. Ezekiel 34:11-12 proclaims, "I myself will search for my sheep and look after them." And of course, Jesus himself said in John 10:11, "I am the good shepherd." Why? Because we are just like sheep. We lose our way. We make reckless choices. We run toward danger without even realizing it. We cannot survive spiritually on our own. We desperately need a shepherd, strong yet gentle, always leading, always protecting. The relationship between a shepherd and his sheep. But here's something even more beautiful. A true shepherd doesn't just own his sheep. He knows them personally. John 10:3 says, "He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out." The sheep recognize his voice, not because they memorize it like a script, but because they trust it. They know it instinctively. It's the voice that leads them to safety, to rest, to life. And the best part? The shepherd doesn't stand off in the distance. He walks with them every step of the way. David knew that kind of relationship with God. That's why, when he penned the words, "The Lord is my shepherd," he wasn't offering a poetic flourish. He was making a bold declaration of trust, a soul-deep confession that God was not distant, not detached, but intimately involved in every detail of his life. And that, my friend, is where the hidden secret of Psalm 23 begins to unfold. Now, we step into the next layer of this profound psalm, one that touches the deepest longings of our hearts. The secret of divine provision. Let's be honest. How often do we feel like we're missing something? Maybe it's money, maybe it's direction, maybe it's love, peace, or simply a sense of meaning and purpose. When those needs aren't met, stress, anxiety, and restlessness creep in like unwelcome guests we can't chase away. But then David writes something stunning, almost radical. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Wait, really? You mean if God is truly my shepherd, I won't lack anything? No more endless worrying, no more living in fear of not having enough? Yes, but maybe not in the way we naturally assume. What does "I shall not want" really mean? David isn't saying, "I'll get everything I ever wish for." He's saying something far deeper, far stronger. Because God is my shepherd, I have everything I truly need. There's a massive difference between getting everything you want and having everything you need. In the original Hebrew, the word translated as want is chaser, meaning to lack, to decrease, or to be without. David is proclaiming that under the care of the Good Shepherd, he will never truly lack anything essential for his life, his growth, or his purpose. Think about that. If you need peace, God will provide it. If you need strength, he will supply it. If you need wisdom, he will generously give it. If you need provision, he will be faithful always. God is not just someone who occasionally provides. He is the provider. It's who he is. God's provision in the Bible. The Bible overflows with stunning examples of God providing exactly what his people needed, often in the most unexpected, miraculous ways. Manna in the wilderness. Exodus 16. When the Israelites had no food in the barren desert, God literally rained down bread from heaven. Elijah and the ravens. 1 Kings 17. During a devastating drought, God sent birds, ravens, to deliver food to Elijah day by day. Jesus feeding the 5,000, Matthew 14. With just 5 loaves and 2 fish, Jesus fed thousands. Because when God is in charge, scarcity is no obstacle. Throughout history, God has never failed to provide for his people. And hear me clearly, he's not about to start now. The real problem, doubting the shepherd. The reason so many of us feel like we're lacking isn't because the shepherd has failed us. It's because we have trouble trusting him fully. We stress over money instead of resting in his provision. We worry about tomorrow instead of trusting his leading. We chase after things, desperately hoping they will fill the void when the shepherd has already given us everything truly necessary. It's like a sheep wandering away from the lush pasture, convinced it can find greener grass on its own, but instead it gets lost. Hungry, vulnerable, the safest, most abundant place a sheep can ever be is close to the shepherd. How do we walk in God's provision? So how do we move from constantly worrying about what we lack to confidently walking in the peace that God will always provide? It starts with a few simple but life-changing shifts. 1. Recognize that God knows your needs even before you ask. Jesus assures us in Matthew 6:8, your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. Think about that for a moment. Before the words even leave your lips, God already knows. Before the worry even bubbles up in your heart, He's already working. 2. Pray with expectation. Philippians 4:6-7 invites us to come to God with our requests, but not in fear or desperation. We are called to pray with thanksgiving, trusting that God's peace will guard our hearts and minds, even before the answer comes. Imagine praying with the quiet confidence of a child who knows their father is already reaching into the cupboard to meet their need. 3. Seek first His kingdom. Matthew 6:33 gives us a powerful priority shift. Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. When we put God's purposes first, above our own ambitions and anxieties, He promises to take care of the rest. 4. Rest in His timing. God's provision doesn't always show up on our timetable, but it's always right on time. His delays are not His denials. When you feel like you're waiting longer than you expected, trust that God is arranging something better than you imagined. The hidden secret: your shepherd is enough. Here's the real, life-altering secret. God Himself is your provision. When David said, "I shall not want," he wasn't just talking about physical needs. He was proclaiming, "As long as I have God, I have all that I need." Friend, that same truth is for you today. You don't have to chase after the approval, security, or comforts of this world to feel complete. You don't have to fear the unknowns of tomorrow. Your shepherd is already ahead of you, already preparing the way, already making sure you have everything you truly need. So take a deep breath, release the burden, and rest in this unshakable truth. You are never without, because your shepherd is always with you. The secret of true rest. Let's be honest. Most of us don't really know how to rest. We live in a world that glorifies hustle. Work harder, do more, push further, stay busy. Even when we finally slow down, our minds often keep racing, filled with worries about bills, deadlines, relationships, and the uncertainty of the future. But here's the question we must ask ourselves. If we serve an all-powerful, all-loving God, why are we still so restless? David gives us a powerful glimpse of peace in Psalm 23, verse 2. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Sounds serene, doesn't it? But hidden within that peaceful image is a deep spiritual truth that many overlook. Why is it that sheep struggle to lie down? Why sheep struggle to lie down? It may sound simple, but a sheep lying down in green pastures is actually a rare sight. Because for a sheep to truly rest, 4 very specific conditions must be met. 1. They must be free from fear. Sheep are naturally skittish. The slightest strange noise, a rustling bush, a distant howl, can send them into panic. They won't lie down if they sense even the smallest threat nearby. 2. They must be free from tension. Among sheep, there's a pecking order. If there's conflict within the flock, rivalry, butting heads, the entire group remains restless and uneasy. 3. They must be free from hunger. A hungry sheep is a restless sheep. If their stomachs are empty, they will pace and search and fret. Only when they are fully fed can they truly relax. 4. They must be free from pests. Flies, ticks, parasites. These tiny irritants can drive sheep to madness, making it impossible for them to stay still and calm. Do you see where this is leading? God longs to lead you into true spiritual rest, but like sheep, many of us are too restless to receive it. We are full of fear, worrying about the future. We are burdened by tension, holding on to old grudges and bitterness. We are spiritually starving, hungry for a deeper connection with God. We are constantly distracted and irritated by the noise and chaos of life around us. No wonder our souls are restless. What does God do? He makes me lie down, the gift of forced rest. Notice carefully how David words it. He makes me lie down. Sometimes God lovingly forces us into rest. Think about it. How many times has God slowed you down? Maybe it was through a season of waiting you didn't understand. Maybe it was a sickness that halted your plans. Maybe it was a lost opportunity or a door that slammed shut when you least expected it. At the time, it felt frustrating, even painful. But what if, just what if, it was God, gently but firmly, leading you into rest? He doesn't force rest because He's cruel. He forces rest because He loves you too much to let you burn out. He knows you cannot flourish without it. The secret of rest. Trusting the shepherd. Here's the real heart of the secret. Rest isn't just about stopping. Rest is about trusting. Sheep will only lie down when they feel absolutely safe in the presence of their shepherd. In the same way, you and I will never experience true soul-deep rest until we fully trust that God is in control. Jesus offered us this beautiful promise in Matthew 11:28-30. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. That's not just a suggestion, it's a promise. You don't have to carry it all alone anymore. So today, whatever is making your soul restless, your fears, your burdens, your endless worries, lay them down. Let the shepherd lead you to green pastures. Let him quiet your heart. Let him be your rest, because when you are in the strong, gentle hands of the good shepherd, you can finally breathe deeply, knowing you are safe. The secret of peace. Now picture this. You're standing at the edge of a still, mirror-like lake. No crashing waves, no swirling chaos, just perfect, breathtaking stillness. That's the picture David paints for us in Psalm 23, verse 2, when he writes, "He leads me beside still waters." But as peaceful as that sounds, there's a deeper meaning hidden here, one that can transform the way you experience peace, if you truly see it. Why sheep need still waters. Sheep by nature are terrified of fast-moving water. If a sheep were to fall into a rushing stream, its thick wool would quickly become heavy with water, pulling it under and causing it to drown. A good shepherd knows this. He doesn't drive his flock toward dangerous, chaotic rivers. Instead, he leads them to calm, gentle waters, where they can drink safely without fear. What does this mean for us? If we're honest, most of us are drowning in rushing waters right now. The rushing waters of anxiety, worrying endlessly about things we can't control. The rushing waters of busyness, always moving, never pausing, never breathing. The rushing waters of social media, news, and opinions, overwhelming us with noise, distraction, and fear. We're caught in the currents. No wonder we can't find peace. And yet, David reminds us, He leads me beside still waters. God doesn't want you to live in a state of constant anxiety and exhaustion. He wants to lead you into peace, real, soul-deep peace. Jesus, the living water that satisfies our souls. In John 4, Jesus meets a woman at a well. He tells her something extraordinary. Whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst again. What was he really saying? The world offers temporary relief. Money, success, relationships, entertainment. But none of it can satisfy the deep thirst of our souls. Only Jesus, the living water, can quench the ache within us permanently. That's why Philippians 4:7 promises, "And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This is the secret. The kind of peace that doesn't make sense to the world. Peace that holds firm even when everything around you is shaking. How do we walk in God's peace? If you're struggling to find peace right now, here's what the Good Shepherd invites you to do. 1. Let the shepherd lead you. Peace isn't found by chasing after things. It's found by following Jesus closely, step by step. 2. Be still and know that He is God. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Sometimes the reason we can't feel His peace is simply because we never slow down long enough to hear His voice. 3. Pray about everything. Philippians 4:6 urges us, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." When we carry our worries to Him instead of carrying them alone, anxiety fades and peace rises. 4. Trust that God is in control. The world around us may be spinning wildly, but God remains unshaken. If He is leading you, you can walk through the storm without fear. The hidden secret. Peace is not the absence of problems, it's the presence of God. Real peace isn't about having perfect circumstances. It's not about everything in your life going smoothly. It's about having the perfect shepherd walking with you through green pastures, through still waters, and even through storms. That's why Jesus could sleep peacefully in the middle of a raging storm on the Sea of Galilee, because true peace isn't around us, it's within us, when He is with us. Even in a raging storm, Paul could sing in prison. Even in the middle of fierce battles, David could write songs of peace and trust. Why? Because peace isn't determined by what's happening around you. It's anchored in who is leading you. If the Lord is truly your shepherd, then you don't have to fear the storm. You don't have to be a prisoner to anxiety. You don't have to let chaos control your mind and emotions. You can walk in perfect peace, even when everything around you feels uncertain, because the Good Shepherd is faithfully leading you towards still waters. So today, take a deep breath. Let go of the stress that's weighing you down. Allow God to take the lead, because His peace, a peace deeper than understanding, is waiting for you. The secret of healing. Let's be real. Life breaks us. We walk through disappointments. We endure heartbreaks. We feel the sting of betrayal. We mourn loss after loss. Some of us are carrying invisible wounds from years ago, wounds no one else even sees. We smile outwardly, keeping up appearances, but inside, we feel drained, weary, and empty. And then David writes these breathtaking words in Psalm 23:3, He restores my soul. Notice what David doesn't say, not I restore myself, not life will eventually fix me, but He restores my soul. Only God can bring true, lasting healing. No amount of money, no level of success, no relationship, no self-help strategy can do what the shepherd can do. What does restore really mean? The Hebrew word for restore here is shav, meaning to bring back, to refresh, to repair. It paints the picture of a sheep that has wandered off, gotten tangled in thorns, fallen into a pit, or grown so exhausted that it collapses, unable to rise again on its own. Ever feel like that? Like life knocked you flat, and no matter how hard you try, you just can't seem to get back up? Here's the beautiful truth. The shepherd doesn't leave you there. He doesn't scold you for falling. He doesn't abandon you in the dust. He comes after you. He bends low. He lifts you up gently, and He restores you. Biblical stories of restoration. The Bible is filled with real, raw stories of broken people that God lovingly restored. Joseph, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned, yet God restored him, raising him up as a ruler in Egypt and using his pain for a greater purpose. Job, stripped of everything, his family, his health, his fortune, yet God restored him, blessing him with twice as much as he had before. Peter, who denied Jesus 3 times and carried the shame of failure, yet Jesus sought him out, restored him, and turned him into a bold leader of the early church. If God restored them, with all their flaws and failures, He can restore you too. How does God restore us? 1. Through His presence. Psalm 16:11 says, In your presence there is fullness of joy. Restoration doesn't come from fixing all the external circumstances. It comes from experiencing the life-giving presence of God Himself. How does God restore us? 1. Through His presence. Psalm 16:11 tells us, In your presence there is fullness of joy. When we intentionally spend time with God, whether through prayer, worship, or quiet reflection, He refreshes our weary souls. He fills empty places with His peace. He breathes life where exhaustion once reigned. 2. Through His Word, Psalm 19 verse 7 declares, The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. God's Word has a healing power that is beyond human understanding. It speaks life into dead places. It brings light into the darkest corners of our hearts. It stitches together what was torn apart and breathes hope where there once was only despair. 3. Through His grace, Isaiah 61:3 offers this incredible promise, to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, and a garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. God specializes in divine exchange. He takes our broken pieces, the ashes of our regrets, losses, and mistakes, and creates something beautiful in their place, something stronger, something more radiant. Your past doesn't define you. God's restoration does. You may feel broken beyond repair. You may look back on your life and see only a trail of mistakes and missed opportunities. But hear this, deep in your soul, God is not finished with you. If you are still breathing, then God is still restoring. He is still working. He is still healing. He is still weaving something beautiful out of what feels like brokenness. So today, right now, open your heart. Let the Good Shepherd restore your soul. The secret of divine direction. Have you ever felt lost? Like you're standing at a crossroads looking at multiple paths and whispering, God, which way should I go? We all face seasons where the next step isn't clear. We feel the weight of decisions pressing down on us. And in those moments, Psalm 23 verse 3 offers a breathtaking promise. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. Not, I figure it out on my own. Not, I hope I stumble into the right choice. He leads me. What are paths of righteousness? In the original Hebrew, paths of righteousness refers to right paths, not just morally good decisions, but the correct, best paths uniquely tailored for your life. It's not always the easiest path. It's not always the shortest path. And sometimes it won't even make sense in the moment. But if God is the one leading, you can trust that it is the best path, even when the road winds through valleys, even when it requires waiting, even when it demands more faith than you feel you have. How does God lead us? 1. Through His Word. Psalm 119:105 says, Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. If you want to know God's direction, start with what He has already revealed in Scripture. His Word is a guide that never fails. 2. Through the Holy Spirit. John 16:13 promises, The Spirit of truth will guide you into all truth. The Holy Spirit whispers, nudges, convicts, and comforts, guiding us step by step in daily decisions if we are willing to listen. 3. Through wise counsel. Proverbs 11:14 teaches, Where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors there is safety. God often speaks through wise mentors, pastors, friends who walk closely with Him. Seeking godly advice can be one of the clearest ways God confirms His direction in your life. How God leads through open and closed doors. Sometimes God's guidance comes not just through open opportunities, but through closed ones too. Revelation 3:7 reminds us, What He opens, no one can shut, and what He shuts, no one can open. There are moments when God, in His perfect wisdom, closes a door we desperately wanted to walk through. And there are moments when He flings open a door we never even considered. It might not always make sense in the moment, but trust this. If the Shepherd is closing or opening doors in your life, it's always for your ultimate good. But what if I've taken the wrong path? Maybe you're thinking right now, but what if I've already made bad choices? What if I messed up? Here's the good news you need to hear. God is the God of redemption. He doesn't just abandon you because you made a wrong turn. Romans 8:28 promises us, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him. Think about a GPS system. When you take a wrong turn, what does it do? It doesn't scream at you or give up. It simply recalculates, guiding you back toward your destination. God works the same way with your life. Even if you veer off course, even if you stumble, He is able to redeem every wrong turn and weave it into His perfect plan. The hidden secret. Your purpose is bigger than you. And notice the last part of the verse. For His name's sake. Your journey isn't just about your happiness, your comfort, or your dreams. It's about His glory. God's path for your life is designed not just to bless you, but to reflect His goodness to the world around you. When people watch your story, the struggles, the breakthroughs, the growth, the redemption, they should see the fingerprints of God all over it. Your life is meant to point back to Him. So today, wherever you are, whether you feel confident or confused, found or lost, trust that the Shepherd is still leading you. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to have a 5-step plan. You just have to follow Him. The secret of courage. Let's be honest, life isn't always green pastures and still waters. Sometimes we find ourselves in the middle of a dark valley, a season of deep pain, profound loss, crushing uncertainty, and heavy fear. And in those moments, it's so easy to cry out, "God, where are you?" But David makes a radical, breathtaking statement in Psalm 23:4. "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Did you catch that? David doesn't say, "God will keep me from the valley." He says, "Even though I walk through it." The reality of valleys. Here's something that's hard to hear, but crucial. God never promised that life would be free of valleys. Jesus himself said in John 16:33, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world." Valleys are a part of life, but here's the hidden secret. Valleys are also where God often does his greatest work in us. Understanding the valley of the shadow of death. The phrase shadow of death in Hebrew is tsalmaveth, meaning deep darkness, the kind of darkness that feels overwhelming, suffocating, hopeless. It represents the hardest seasons of life, the valley of sickness, the valley of financial hardship, the valley of depression, the valley of grief, the valley of fear. But notice something very important. David doesn't say it's the valley of death. He says it's the valley of the shadow of death. And here's the hidden truth about shadows. A shadow can look terrifying, but it cannot harm you. A shadow has no real substance. A shadow has no power. And if there's a shadow, what does that mean? It means there must be a light nearby. Even in your darkest valley, God's light is still shining. Even when you can't feel it, his presence is closer than you realize. How do we face valleys without fear? David says, "I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Courage doesn't come from avoiding valleys. Courage comes from knowing who is walking with you through them. Think about it. Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, but God was there. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego faced a fiery furnace, but God was there. Paul and Silas sat chained in a prison cell, but God was there. And right now, in your valley, whatever it looks like, God is there too. He doesn't leave you trapped in the darkness. He walks step by step with you through it, guarding, guiding, and strengthening you all the way. The valley is temporary. David says, "Even though I walk through the valley," not "even though I set up camp in the valley." You are passing through. You are not stuck here forever. Psalm 30 verse 5 reminds us, "Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning." Whatever valley you find yourself in today, it will not last forever. God is leading you through it. And on the other side, there's victory waiting for you. The secret of God's discipline and protection. At first glance, this next verse might seem strange. "Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." Wait, a rod? A staff? Aren't those tools of discipline? Why would David say they bring him comfort? Because here's the hidden secret. God's discipline and protection are not signs of his anger. They are undeniable proof of his deep, unshakable love. The rod, God's protection. In ancient times, a shepherd carried a heavy rod, a short, stout club, to protect his flock. When predators like wolves or lions came to attack, the shepherd used the rod to defend the sheep fiercely. What does this mean for us? It means God fights for us. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." Exodus 14:14 promises, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." When the enemy comes against you, you are not left defenseless. The shepherd steps in. He fights battles you can't even see. He defends you when you feel too weak to lift your head. He stands between you and the attack. The staff was an essential tool for a shepherd, a long stick with a curved end at the top. Sometimes when a sheep wandered too far off, the shepherd would reach out with the staff, hook the sheep gently around the neck or body, and pull it back to safety. Other times, the shepherd would simply nudge a sheep in the right direction, a gentle tap, a subtle correction, keeping the flock moving toward green pastures. What does this mean for us? God's guidance works the same way in our lives. He's not standing far off, shouting directions from a distance. He's walking right beside us, constantly guiding, pulling us back when we stray, nudging us forward when we hesitate. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Psalm 32 verse 8 promises, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you. Sometimes God nudges us gently through conviction, that quiet stirring in your heart that says, this isn't right, you're drifting off track. Other times he has to pull us back more firmly through correction when we stubbornly head toward danger. What if I don't like God's correction? Let's be real. None of us enjoy being corrected. It stings. It humbles us. It reminds us that we don't always know best. But Hebrews 12:6 tells us plainly, the Lord disciplines the one he loves. Think about a loving parent. They don't let their child run into a busy street, even if the child wants to. They grab them back, firmly, urgently, because they love them too much to let them get hurt. A good shepherd doesn't let a sheep wander off a cliff. And God, our good shepherd, doesn't let us destroy ourselves either. His correction isn't punishment, it's protection. God's discipline is a sign that you belong to him. When David says, your rod and your staff, they comfort me, he's not just talking about warm feelings. He's expressing a deep, soul-level security. I am comforted because I know you are fighting for me. I am comforted because I know you are leading me. I am comforted because I know you love me enough to correct me. Instead of resisting God's discipline, we should thank him for it. Because if God is correcting you, it means he hasn't given up on you. It means he still has a beautiful plan unfolding in your life. So today, remember this. If you're walking through a valley, God is walking with you. If you feel attacked, God is fighting for you. If you're being corrected, God is protecting you from something far worse. That's the real, deeper secret of Psalm 23. It's not just about comfort and blessing. It's about a shepherd who never leaves you, no matter where you are or what you're facing. The secret of victory. All right, let's be honest. Sometimes life feels like a constant battle. People turn against you. You face opposition at work, in relationships, even within your own mind. The enemy whispers lies, lies of fear, doubt, discouragement, and defeat. But in the middle of all that chaos,